Welcome back to another episode of All the Talk, All the Sports. I'm your host, Gary Wenzel, and today our episode is, are sports returning in the near future? A big question going around the sports world right now. Currently, over the past week, a lot of leagues have set plans in place for what they will do when and if they return for the 2019-2020 season for winter sports. And some baseball, summer sport still hasn't started, should be well underway by now, and football that hasn't been affected quite yet, but could possibly be affected. So today, I have Eli Hauser and Caden Moyer joining me on the show today, live guest hosts. Without further ado, let's get right into on this day in sports history segment. So, in 1968, the National League grants the San Diego Padres as a franchise. This is essentially the San Diego Padres' birthday. May 28th, 1968, they became a team. Also, another very interesting fact is, in 2006, Barry Bonds hits his 715th career home run, passing Babe Ruth on the MLB all-time home run list. So, I also have another interesting thing to discuss with you today. As you may have noticed when you clicked on this podcast, our logo has changed. I'd like to give a shout out to Nic Bernhart, helped me with he made the logo. Thank you, Nic Bernhart. You can follow him on Instagram at Nic, Nic_Bernhart, BERNHRAART, excuse me. He is a way better graphic designer than I am, as you can tell with the old logo. I am not a graphic designer in any form or any way, so thank you, Nic Bernhart. Make sure to give him a follow, because he did an excellent job on that logo. So, without further ado, let's get right into our sports returning in the near future. I know for a fact that Eli or Caden Moyer are not big NHL fans, don't know much about the NHL, so I'm going to cover the NHL before they hop in on the podcast. So, the NHL announced that they will be doing a 24-team playoff. A lot more teams than they usually have, just because they're going to cut the regular season right away, give every team a chance. Every team that had the potential to make the playoffs and could make a push and get themselves a bid in the playoffs, they're all going to be in the playoffs in a big 24-team playoff. The best 12 teams from each conference, based on point percentage, got in. There's two conferences, Eastern and Western, so the best 12 teams, 12 from each, got into the NHL playoffs, and there will be two hub cities, one from each conference, East and West. There are 10 cities in the discussion, 5 from the East and 5 from the West. Those were not announced quite yet, and 2 will be picked at a later date, 1 from East and 1 from West, and this is definitely going to go into effect only if they can play the 2019-2020 season. This is not, they didn't announce any dates, but they are suspecting it, and I am suspecting it to go into effect. I predict that they're gonna start training around late June, early July, and pick up some actual games and start the playoffs in a little late early July and mid-July for the NHL. So that's some big NHL news. And now I welcome in Caden Moyer and Eli Hauser to the podcast. So, Caden, I have a question for you. I know you're a big college football fan yourself, so I'm just going to run through the basics of what college football is planning to do for the upcoming 2020 season. So, practice starts June 8th for some teams. That's the first day the NCAA permitted every college football team to start practicing, but some schools have made their discretion to not let them practice. I'm not sure which schools, so I know a lot of schools are going to start their practice June 8th to hope to have a normal season for 2020. And starting June 1st, players can come on campus and work out on their own time and just get back into the grind on campus. So the bottom line here is college football is hoping to have a normal 2020 season. Caden, can I have your opinion on what you think the college football How do you think it's going to be affected, or do you think it's just going to just be a normal 2020 season just like the last couple of years?
My opinion on how it's going to play out is that it's probably going to be delayed because of how big this coronavirus thing is and how long it might last. You really don't know, but they have to follow guidelines, like whatever the school says. They can't play college football if they're not in school yet.
Yeah, because I know a lot of that also has to do with the state discretion. Is the state going to let them play? And another big question about college football is, are there going to be fans in the stands when they do return? I know Ohio State, big Ohio State fan, they have plans, if they have to, they have plans set up that their stadium holds 100-something thousand. Their plan is to have like 22,000 fans in the stands, social distance, but still have fans there in the stands and get a little bit of a good atmosphere going. So, Caden, you said you think college football is going to be delayed. How far do you think they'll be delayed? Any extended playoffs, extended season? How do you think that's going to play out?
I feel like they might take like 4 games out of the schedule. I thought somewhere around that.
Yeah, if they did take 4 games out of the schedule, I think it would be the first non-conference games. I think I'm not speaking for you here, but I think that would be the best idea. I personally think, and I personally hope that they're going to play a full season. I think they might start off with no fans, but I think they're going to play that first game in late August, early September. So now let's move into the MLB here. Eli, I'm going to run through the MLB, ask you some questions about it. I know you're a big baseball guy, so in the MLB's first proposal, that got shot down pretty quickly by the MLBPA, the Players Association, Players Union, I forget what it's called. So the new proposal would be 82-game season, 30-man active roster, and 14-team playoffs into October and November in regular stadiums, hoping that this all dies down. And the biggest part that I think the players are not a big fan of is the over 50% salary cuts that they'll have to take on their season. So, Eli, do you think, I know we discussed this a lot, you've been on the show a bunch of times discussing this, do you think the MLB, I'm thinking the MLB is going to start, when do you think the MLB is going to start?
Honestly, I'm not really sure, but it's got to be sometime like late July, honestly, because I don't think this thing will be completely wrapped up for a while. And I think about the pay cuts, I think that's going to affect a lot of players. And obviously, and then the thing that for me that really sticks out is players on 1-year deals. Like, how are they going to handle that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I know salaries, these guys are getting paid a lot, but over 50% salary cut is a really big deal. It's not just like they're losing 25% or less. Yeah, I think they're going to play this year as well. I think it's going to be in early July, actually, and I think they're going to do something more of what the NHL is doing with just a couple select cities and then just them playing there. But the Players Union really has to soon accept a proposal here, because they're getting really picky, and at this rate, I know the owners and the players are kind of in the bigger fight here with each other. Based on, it's all about money, so you just really hope that the Players Union finally and the MLB comes to a agreement on their decision moving forward. So, Caden, now I asked you to cover the NFL, give me an insight of what they're doing and steps for 2020, and Eli, I asked you NBA, what they're doing for their steps to continue a season. So, Caden, let's hear your thoughts on the NFL, please.
All right, so right now, the NFL facilities are open to certain employees and workers, but coaches are expected to go start working in the next week. And then minicamp should start shortly after, but the season is supposed to start on time.
Yeah, Caden, a follow-up question there. Do you think there's going to be fans in the stands? Because I know football is one of those sports, it's not like baseball where fans aren't a huge part of this scenario, but football, they're definitely a big part. Do you think there'll be fans in the stands if the season starts on time?
Yeah, I think there will be, but I think they're going to be, socially distanced. There's going to be a less amount of fans, so.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like you mentioned with Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Eli, about the NBA, what is the NBA taking steps into finishing the 2019-2020 season?
Well, for the playoffs, I've heard that they could do normal playoff structure, 8 from the East, 8 from the West, or I did see this other thing that the 8 Eastern teams and the 8 Western teams, but there were 4 Western Conference teams. It was the Spurs, Pelicans, Blazers, and someone else, the Kings. They would all play, and they would all play for that final 8 seed. So I think that would be more. It would be interesting, but I don't know how they would get that all organized.
Yeah, I saw some on ESPN's Instagram, I think. It was of the potential seeds, the 16 teams, like you said before, just a normal playoff and how it would work out, who would be playing who. Eli, I know I read some stuff about NBA playing in Disney. Do you have any news about that?
I don't, but I think if we want to see sports return the quickest, I think that's what it's gonna have to be. So I'm hoping for it.
Yeah, definitely. I heard that there's in Disney there's 3 courts that are ready to be played on, ready to be televised, and those 3 courts could have 5 games a day, and if you do the math, there's 30 NBA teams. 3 times 5, that's 15. They each play each other. Each team could be playing a day if they do decide to continue the regular season. But I personally think they're just going to jump right to the playoffs. What do you think? Do you think they're going to continue the regular season or jump to the playoffs?
I referred to that 4-team kind of in the individual games.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think since half the season was cut off, I think that'll be a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, I think it'll be definitely that one other thing that all these sports they're in a time where they've never seen this before and things are going to be interesting. And I know an example with college baseball is ever since this thing has happened, we're actually going to have a separate episode, so I'm not going to give too much teasing here, but the college baseball starting in 2022 is actually making changes to how they're going to run their actual season. That's going to be a whole regular episode coming up in the near future, so I'm not going to leak too much more about that, but coaches, players, everyone here this is all new for them, and everything's going to be interesting with the NHL 2014 playoff, MLB salary cuts, 82-game season, college football not too much affected, NFL not too much affected, just a little bit pushed back there, and NBA also in new territory. So that'll wrap up our sports returning in the near future episode here, because over the past week actually, leagues have been announcing a lot, giving details. This is what us as sports fans have been waiting for. I know that was a long stretch of not knowing what's going to happen. So much talk, nothing official. I love to see what the NHL is doing, announcing something. Very excited to see that play out. Very excited to see what happens with the MLB. Very excited to see what happens with the NBA. Thank you guys so much for being on the podcast here today. And that'll wrap it up, our sports returning in the near future episode. Thank you for listening.